Welcome to my digital city. It's not real, it's digital. In this episode, I'm starting to work towards the canal and locks by building the next structure beside the plastics factory. I took inspiration from a few sources. First, I'm taking some initial inspiration from an HO scale layout by Jason Jensen, and he has a YouTube channel. I like the visual look of trains on elevated rail lines that run close to buildings, almost like someone could open a window and touch the trains as they go past. And second, I drew a lot of inspiration from this picture of the High Line in NYC. I like the High Line's use of metal girder panels and wood platforms. I've always wanted to model an elevated freight line, so I decided to build it in Lego. In my layout, I've added an elevated rail portion facing the waterfront. This first section features a wider, through girder style bridge that transitions into a narrower, open deck girder design. I really wanted to use different bridge designs every so often to avoid the bridge becoming repetitive and boring to look at. I'm not sure where the tracks will go on from here, but on the other side, the track eventually takes a sharp curve and travels through this old textile factory. The Textile Factory is a somewhat narrow building that also acts as a transition between the embankment and lower docklands, meaning there's access to the factory from the upper level on one side and lower level on the other. It's mostly shaped as a narrow rectangle, but the gray concrete building beneath the plastics factory provided the space to expand and create a wider section at this end. To add some detail, I created a connection from the textile factory to the elevated rail via this little pedestrian bridge. The basic window design is a 10 by 12 section using 1 by 2 and 2 by 2 bricks with some mason bricks scattered in. The window sections are 6 studs wide, but there is no arch piece that spans that length. So to create the arch, I started with a 1 by 2 by 8 arch piece and put 9 window pieces behind it to mimic the appearance of arched windows. Some bricks are replaced by plates and quarter tiles to mimic holes and cracks. The danger of modeling textile factories, not just in Lego, but in scale modeling, is that they can look really repetitive because it's basically floor on floors of rooms with the same windows. For me personally, I want to combat that look here, so I broke up the repetition by boarding up windows, adding various AC units, and of course, pipes and vents. It just gives the building a bit more personality. The workers found a cool place to hang out with great views, but, of course, they can't escape the watchful gaze of the boss's prying eyes. Connecting the factory to the plastics factory is a little annex. It's really here to fill in that space and act as a buffer between the two buildings. One of the main things I want to ensure is to make as much use of the Lego color palette as possible. I don't want to limit my buildings to just red and tan color tones. That'll be too visually boring, so I want to find creative ways to make industrial buildings using a wide variety of colors. The annex doesn't line up with the textile factory on purpose. I left a gap here, just so there's some visual details and it's not a straight, flat, continuous wall. I've worked in old buildings like this, and looking out the window, you just wonder how the junk gets up there on the roof. One of the main features of the textile factory is the large rooftop sign. It's modeled off those huge signs you see on older factories. They are often propped up on a framework of old rusty metal beams and cross bracing. I want to make my rooftops really busy, as it adds a lot of interest to something that is often modeled very plain and empty, but takes up a lot of visual space, so I want to make it interesting. I think it also adds a really nice iconic flair and landmark to this area of the city. On this side of the textile factory, the lack of details is just temporary. In fact, I haven't even added the main doors to the building yet, as this whole area is temporary. The tracks exit the textile factory and enter in this red building. This OG building from all the way back from my first video. When I initially built it, I wasn't sure if this door would service trucks or be another rail access, but in the end, I decided to make it another unloading dock for the warehouse. In front of the door, we'll have to put a railway diamond, which I haven't built yet. It'll be tricky because none of the standard and third-party tracks will fit. I'll talk about how I'm dealing with this in a future episode. So that's it for now. I like how the building is working out. It's not quite done, and I'll be finishing up the other side once I figure out what's going on here, but I like the look of the layout when looking from the shoreline with all the variations of height going on. Thanks for watching.